Some disturbing news coming straight from the mouth of Israel's president regarding terrorists and their plans for young children. Israel's President Isaac Herzog appeared on NBC's Meet the Press Sunday and revealed a document alleging Hamas terrorists use summer camps for Palestinian children as a method of, quote, promoting the resistance and jihadi culture. The secret document, written in July by Hamas's Al-Qassam brigade, details the terrorist group's self-proclaimed goals for the summer camp held across the Gaza Strip. And get this, among the goals listed in the docs are to quote promote the culture of resistance and the values of jihad among children, as well as provide quote spiritual, mental, and physical preparation for children to serve the resistance in the future, and to quote contribute to the militarization of society through training. Watch.
تعرفي عن المسجد الأقصى؟
إنه عاصمة فلسطين لازم إحنا ندافع عن القدس ونخليش اليهود يهدمها.
يعني إحنا لازم نقاتل اليهود وما نخلي اليهود يخشوا على الأقصى. وأنت بتحبي الأقصى ولا بتحبي بابا أكتر؟
بحب الأقصى.
إيه شطورة من بابا كمان.
ولو احنا مشينا بشرائع الدين وتمسكنا بالدين وكنا أمة واحدة وصلينا الفجر في المسجد واتبعنا الشرائع الدينية أكيد هتتحرر فلسطين، صح ولا لا؟
بالتأكيد. يعني أول حاجة يجب علينا إيش؟ نلتزم بطاعة الله عز وجل والصلاة في المسجد ونلجأ إلى الله عز وجل وعلينا بالدعاء، صح ولا لا؟
صحيح.
وأيضا الجهاد
في سبيل الله. الجهاد هو إيش يا فكور؟ هو سلام الإسلام.
طيب أهم إحنا لازم نعرف حبايبنا الأطفال أيضا إنه اليهود المجرمين قاعدين بخططوا وبيعملوا أنفاق من تحت إيش المسجد الأقصى المبارك عشان إيش يسووا؟ نسيت إيش بدهم يعملوا. الهي بدهم يحطوا بدل قبة الصخرة الهي إيش اسمه؟
هيكل المزعوم.
The video released by Israel Defense Forces on X is hard to watch if you're wondering what the supposed summer camp activities include. Shooting practice with simulations of terror attacks and tours of Hamas's terror tunnels. Herzog claims that the camps were held inside Hamas-controlled military sites. The question now remains, would you send your child to this summer camp? Yikes. Also, as the war rages on, Israel Defense Forces are promising to wipe out Hamas so its threat does not recur. Now, the Lebanon-based Hezbollah organization is threatening Israel with, quote, fighting without limits. The harsh words documented by the Middle East Media Research Institute. The threat came via an article threatening if Israel initiates a war against Lebanon, Hezbollah will use unconventional weapons. The comments followed a speech by Hezbollah's Secretary General and warned, quote, if the enemy is thinking of starting a war against Lebanon, our fighting will be without any limits, rules, or constraints. He did not hide the existence of a serious possibility that the situation on the Lebanese front will deteriorate into extensive war. He said, quote, the equation will not be a building for a building, but rather tens of thousands of fatalities within the enemy entity in retaliation for thousands of fatalities in Lebanon. You have been warned, he said. Yikes. Well, joining to discuss is geopolitical analyst Harley Lippman. Harley, you are part of MEPA. You were just telling me the largest congressional commitment to promote trust between Israelis and Palestinians. And it looks like that trust is doing nothing but deteriorating. So what is going wrong here?
Well, you know, when you described just now the training camps, what they really are in essence is kind of the equivalent of what the Nazis in Germany would do when they would indoctrinate children. And with Hamas, what that means is they're teaching people the importance of their number one priority, which is to kill Jews wherever they see them. And also not only to kill Jews, but to put them through as much pain as possible, to torture them, and especially to show extreme sexual violence towards women. You know, what happened on October 7th is documented. I mean, they raped the daughters in front of the parents. They then would burn the families slowly alive. They put babies in ovens and turned it on. I mean, this is not an exaggeration. This is exactly what they did. Not even the Nazis did things like that. Not that I'm trying to minimize the Holocaust and the magnitude, which is 6 million killed, but Hamas's mission is one thing, their charter says it, is to destroy a nation next to them, which is incredible because no place in the world has that, where there's another nation next to you that sole purpose is to destroy you. And it's shocking to me that even Israel has tolerated this. So they teach this extreme hatred. And while it's starting with Israel, because Israel's a little Satan, eventually it'll get to America because America's a big Satan. And so we really have to be aware that we're at war with radical Islam. And, you know, they start with the Jews, but it never ends with the Jews. The Jews are the canary in the coal mine as to the health of the world or the health of a society's mores and values. Because if you're going against the Jews, it shows a level of intolerance, and it's going to continue with other people.
So why do you think so many people, basically American pop culture, is kind of looking through a completely different lens? You know, I just went out to the very popular Memorial Park in Houston, and there was graffiti out there about protecting Palestine, which basically every Palestinian is an Islamist. And I was at New Year's Eve gathering. This little girl comes up to me and says that her favorite country is Palestine. So what is missing here when Palestine, we're seeing this documentation that Palestine is actually teaching its children to be terrorists, and people in America are now in pop culture largely supporting these Palestinian Islamists? Where's
exactly? No, you said it very well, and thank you for being so candid to lay it out there. It's amazing to me. I'm trying to get my hand around it, but here's what I can say. One of it is they view Israel as the oppressor and the Palestinians as being oppressed. And so the moral superiority goes to those being oppressed, and the ends justify the means. That's kind of the essence of it. But let's look at the hard facts. One, let's see who's more pro-Palestinian, Hamas or Israel. If you ask any Palestinian what they want, they're probably going to say a nation of my own. Well, Hamas does not want a Palestine. They make it very clear in their charter. They want a caliphate. That's land that's ruled by strict Islamic law across the whole Arab world. That's what they want. Where Israel has no problem with another nation, Palestine. When you go back to the creation of Israel in 1947, the United Nations created two nations. They created Palestine, they created Israel. Israel was fine with it. And they said, we're good, we're okay. The Arab world rejected this idea of a Jewish nation. 5 Arab armies invaded Israel to destroy it. And the Arab armies lost the war. What happened to the land that was supposed to be Palestine? That's the West Bank, which Jordan took control of it illegally, not Israel. And the Gaza Strip was also supposed to be part of this Palestine. Who stopped that? Egypt, an Arab country. They took control of it. So Israel's not against Palestinians and not against a Palestinian nation. 6 times Israel tried to negotiate, land for peace where there would be a Palestinian nation. But each time the Palestinians and the Arabs say no. They do not want to recognize a Jewish nation in the Middle East. And that's the huge tragedy of it. And if anyone has a right to that land, it's the Jewish people. They were there. There's only one people in the world today that from 3,000 years ago live in the same land, speak the same language, worship the same God. That's the Jewish people. Islam only swept into the area in the 600s. And
wow.
actually,
well,
sorry.
I was going to say, thanks for laying that out, because we have not, I don't hear it laid out like that. So thank you for informing us millennials about what's really going on. Now, I think the reason that pop culture easily dubs Israel as the oppressor is that news everywhere is reporting that Israel's killed 20,000 plus people in Gaza. That sounds like an awfully lot. That sounds like a genocide. So what's your reaction to that?
It's terrible. I mean, I can tell you that there's nothing good coming out of it that innocent Palestinian women, children, elderly are being killed, and they are. It's terrible. But who's responsible for that? Hamas attacked Israel and killed 1,200 Israelis. That's equivalent in the United States of 45,000 people being killed on 9/11. We in the United States lost close to 3,000 people, but Israel's a lot smaller. So the equivalent for Israel's Israel's 9/11 is the equivalent of 45,000 people being killed in Israel. And worse, after 9/11, nothing happened in the United States. After Israel's 9/11, which was on October 7th, which is 3 months ago, rockets from Gaza have been fired into Israel every single day. This is a full war. Now, who's responsible for these poor Palestinians being killed? Hamas. Do they have one air raid shelter in Gaza? Not one, because they don't care about their people. They're exploiting them for violence. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars building these vast tunnels only to protect their own terrorists and fighters. Even on television in Moscow, when a commentator said to Hamas, well, what about the Palestinian people who are being bombed by the Israelis? They said, oh, let Israel take care of that, or the UN. They said that the tunnels are for the protection of Hamas fighters. So when Hamas goes into a hospital and fires a rocket from that hospital into an Israeli home that kills an Israeli family, that hospital has lost its protected status and is a legitimate target. So when you mix among civilians and you're firing rockets from someone's home and someone's balcony, you put them at risk. Hamas is responsible for doing that. And that's the tragedy of it. Not one Palestinian child would be dead today if Hamas didn't cross the border. They raided a music peace festival. And they raped the women, tortured them. I mean, there's documentation of this. I mean, they committed horrible acts of violence there, killing everybody. They killed a couple hundred people. This was a peace music festival. And, and they took an 82-year-old grandmother and made her go FaceTime with her family and tortured her to death. That's what we're speaking about. I mean, a really horrible attack on Jews just because they're Jews. And then Israel went to try to wipe out Hamas. They're not against Palestinians. Israel has you mentioned the word genocide. Israel has the military power to wipe out all the Palestinians easily. They're one of the most powerful nations in the world, Israel, and man for man, probably the most powerful military and intelligence service in the world. Yet they're not doing it. So if they really wanted to commit genocide, it's not hard to do. They don't need this to do it. They're just trying to defeat an enemy that wants to destroy them. That's all. And it's sad and tragic that they have to hide among civilians.
Okay, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about the Lebanon issue that I was discussing before you came on. We've got Hezbollah apparently firing across the border at Israel, but saying if you fire back and try to defend yourselves, then we're going to go all in on you.
Right, exactly. Think about that. We're firing rockets at you in Israel, but if you defend yourself and fire rockets back, there'll be no limits to what we're going to do to you. Limitless war, no rules, no accountability. I mean, you're kidding me. What would any country do? I mean, this is how you know it's anti-Semitism. Think of any other country if that happened to. Do you think that would be acceptable? The problem with Hezbollah is this. Hezbollah wants to show solidarity with the Palestinians and fight Israel. And Israel is distracted by its very tough and complicated war in Gaza. So Israel is fighting on 2-3 fronts because they're also fighting the Houthis in Yemen, if you will. So on that level, Hezbollah would like to go to war with Israel and be a hero in the Arab world where Israel's distracted in Gaza. On the other hand, half of Lebanon is not Hezbollah. And Lebanese are going to the Hezbollah and saying, hey, look what Israel's doing in Gaza. I don't want my home destroyed. Don't go to war with Israel. And I think that hopefully Hezbollah does not want Lebanon destroyed and will not attack Israel. Also, the hope is that Hezbollah is a little more rational than Hamas. Hamas is like ISIS. They just glorify in death and rape and murder, where Hezbollah is a little more rational. So the hope is they won't go to war. And lastly, the reason why Hezbollah will not go to war with Israel is because Iran, which controls Hezbollah, is using them as insurance so that if Israel attacks Iran's nuclear facilities or attacks Iran at all, Iran's insurance is that they'll unleash Hezbollah in Israel, which is 10 times stronger than Hamas.
Oh, the plot thickens. Wow. What a scary mess out there. Wow. Harley Lippman, so good to have you on. Great talking with you. Thank you for breaking all that down for us.
Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for having me on.